Today we're going to tackle chapter 14. This is the ninth week. Next week will be the 15th week, or the 10th week, and we will tackle chapter 15. And next week you guys can start doing your online counseling with each other, with your characters, of course. Let me show you something. This is what I want you to cover in your counseling sessions. As you can see, it's on the blackboard, and let me open it up and I'll show you what it looks like. This is what I want you to cover. From your history, I want you to talk about their current symptoms, the past psychiatric history, if there is any history of any pathology, social and developmental history. Maybe they talk about growing up in poverty or something. From the interview, you need to give me a synopsis of the interview. Talk about the client's strengths. If you have established any goals, talk about their goals. Your diagnosis and any plan that you have for for your client. One of the things that you need to always note is whether there's potential harm, the individual might harm themselves, whether they are so angry that they might do damage to somebody else, and you need to talk about how long your session lasted. You're probably going to average about 30 to 45 minutes per session. That's fairly standard in the practice. So there you go. That's where it is. It's on the assignments page, right under the syllabus, and you just need to answer those questions after you finish your counseling sessions. Now here are they're down at the bottom of the page. So what you'll do is you'll click on, and your screen looks a little bit different than mine does, because I'm putting it together. So what you'll do is you'll click on something, whatever you normally click on, to add your discussion. And in this case, of course, you'll click on right under their name, and then you'll put your counsel notes underneath each client. Now, as you can see, um, we have two from the same person. You can either, okay, you have two. We have two from the same person. One is a female and the other is a male. Then we have four others, I believe. Yeah, four others, as you can see. So I only have five. Theoretically, there's 16 of you. I think maybe one person is probably not going to finish, but that's 5 out of 15, or 1/3 of you have turned in your histories. You get points for your histories, which would help you, and you also get points for each counseling session. 10 points for each counseling session. The way I'm not really going to grade your counseling session as to say you did this right, you did this wrong. I really have no idea whether you did that, but what I will do is make sure that you have all of the information that you're supposed to have with your notes, and that's how I'll grade you. I'll grade you from your notes. So if you don't put any notes in, if you do 10 counseling sessions and don't put any notes in, then I won't know that you've done it. So what you need to do is put the notes in underneath the person's name that you did the counseling session with. And we have some interesting people. We have Harley and Robert Gaines and Mackenzie Davis and Emma Yazzie and Richard Ben. And who else do we have? We have one more, Stella John. So there you go. Interesting people. So that's what you need to do, and now you've got a direction under the assignments. Tells you right here what you need, what questions you need to answer. So you do need to read the client's history. You can do up to 5 with any one person. up to 5 counseling sessions with any one person. Of course, the first part of this will be the same if you do it with, the first part of this will be the same. There you go. All of this will be the same from the history will be the same. And then everything else will be new. If you find that the person is suicidal, then you need to tell somebody. You need to tell. I will be your supervisor, so you need to tell me. Of course, these are all just characters. They're not real people. They're only people acting like that select person. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and get started. This is chapter 14. Taking action, if I can find it, and I can't. There we go. It's right here. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. The practitioner needs to learn specifics about the problem, such as where the problem occurs, who's involved, what are the immediate antecedents and consequences of what's happening, and what meanings are attributed to the problem. If every time you go over to your grandparents' house, there's an altercation, you get angry, and you start a fist fight with one of your brothers, then that is, where the problem occurs, grandma's house, who's involved, me and my brother, what are the immediate antecedents and consequences. We get in a fight, we get in a shouting match, and then we get in a fight, and eventually everybody leaves in a huff. I go and I get drunk, and my brother goes home and complains to his wife. What meanings are attributed to the problem? Why do you have this problem? Well, it may be, there's a lot of different possibilities here. It may be the dramatic grandma, and that's why you fight at grandma's house. It may be that you're angry with your parents for abandoning you when you were 12 years old or whatever, and your brother defends them, and that's where the argument comes in. I mean, there's got to be there's just a ton of different ways we can read this thing. Understanding the environment can require further exploration. You need to understand the family. This obviously is a difficult family dynamic. You've got grandma, you've got the parents who are absent, and then you have the children who are adult children, and that is the problem in this situation. The neighborhood, if you're living downtown Phoenix, of course, and it's kind of a sleazy neighborhood, and there's a lot of drugs in the neighborhood, and possibly that could be a factor in what is happening. School, sometimes schools have a problem. There's bullying going on or whatever. Agency that we're dealing with. Um, Maybe you work for child welfare, a child welfare agency, and you're having problems with one of the religious organizations. Significant groups, who do they belong to, and what is important? Organizations, culture, race, of course, and we've been talking about this all semester. Most of you are Diné. Um, but I can promise you that not all your clients are going to be Diné. Potentially, they will be Caucasian. They may be Hispanic. They may come from another tribe. They may come from an area of the reservation that is alien to you. So that's one of the things that you need to note. Socioeconomic class of the client. What does that have something to do with it? The fact that they're poor or whatever. When I first started studying counseling in the middle 70s, action plans were either developed by the counselor or the agency the counselor worked for. I can show you one of my old textbooks, and they tell you never that you need to make up the plan and then present it to the client. We don't do that anymore. One of the reasons that we didn't allow the client to have a say in what was going to happen next is because it was the idea that they were downtrodden, that They have already made poor decisions, so what's to think that they won't make poor decisions in the future? So they weren't part of the process. The only part of the process was the fact that you counseled them and discovered what their problems were, and now you and the agency would put everything together. Steps identified by clients involve clients in developing an action plan. Now, of course, the clients have to be part of this. A lot of this came out of drug and alcohol counseling. The biggest problem was that we were developing plans to help people, and if they weren't part of it, a lot of times they just didn't participate. They were there, but they didn't participate. So now we allow the client, and of course, we were seeing this in 30-40% of the cases that we were dealing with. So they needed to change their strategy. Not only that, but the culture of need has changed. Once upon a time, people expected you to do everything, to do all the work for them. You were the one that fixed them. You had to fix them. And as a matter of fact, I still talk about that, fixing your client. The reality is that once upon a time, and it wasn't that long ago, well, I guess it was to you guys, because I started doing this before you were born. Once upon a time, that's the way you handled your clients. You did everything for them. Mainly because they couldn't make their own decisions. They couldn't make decisions on their own. That was their problem. But now everything has changed, and that's probably for the best. It fits with today's society much better than trying to give people the answers to their problems. So you need to involve your clients in developing an action plan. This strengthens the working relationship and teaches the client skills. Once upon a time, they were almost considered to be have an intellectual deficit. That was always the assumption, that they weren't smart enough to solve their own problems, so you had to solve their problems for them. And now, of course, what you're trying to do is teach them how to solve their own problems. Whereas before you didn't think, or at least the mindset was, that they didn't have the ability to learn how to solve their own problems. If they hadn't learned by this time, by golly, then they would never learn. Families and groups all need to be to contribute. Ask clients which steps they see as difficult. Steps suggested by one member of the family or group may seem easy to one and not to others. And this is one of the things that you need to talk about. The steps must be small enough that everyone can feel like they can work on the issue. Past successes can help identify steps and strengths. The practitioner can use exception finding questions to identify steps. This is similar to the goal setting process. Recall a time when the problem did not occur, and let's identify what you were doing at the time. The problem may be that they've gained weight. Well, you haven't always been this large. You've gained 50 pounds in the last 6 months. What were you doing before that helped you keep the weight off? And the answer may be he was a jogger before, and he hurt his knee and got depressed and became sedentary. Now that his knee has healed primarily, put a brace on his knee and send him out to run. Not a bad idea. Brainstorm as many steps as possible without critiquing them. Evaluate each possible step. One of the things I've discovered is that when you brainstorm, a lot of times people will have good ideas, or they'll have extreme ideas, and everybody's going, oh man, that's way out there. But the reality may be that you can take a piece of that and put another piece with it and by golly, that's the solution to your problem. So this is one of the things that you need to do when you brainstorm. Be sure that nobody poo-poos any ideas that anybody has, and the reason is because when somebody brings up a one way of doing things, people will think of how they can incorporate that information into the final solution. So then you need to evaluate each possible step, organize steps by prioritizing what is first, second, etc. The clients need to see value in each step, and remember, the client has to be part of this. If they're not part of it, then potentially they won't buy into the solution that you have or that you come up with. It is essential to work with clients on how they can use their strengths and capacities and resources at each step. The client needs to think about other times when they have faced new tasks, when they faced adversity, and they have stared it down. Organizing and creating incremental steps helps ensure success and helps the client to gain confidence. The reality is that you need to make the steps as small as possible. That way they will feel like they are continuing to progress. One of the things I've always told my children when they were in a negative situation is keep moving in a positive direction. As long as you're moving in a positive direction, the fact that you've taken 2 steps backwards, but continue to take those steps forward, then that tells you that you're going to get over this and that you're going to take care of the problem. And much to their credit, my children have always been able to do that, to be able to keep moving forward. Um, I have a son who decided he was so pretty that he wanted to be a model, or maybe go to Hollywood and become a star. You know, it's one of those kind of situations. He was a track star. He was a weightlifter. He was a soccer star. So he went to New York City to become, famous. And of course, nothing quite worked out. But we kept telling him, well, you need to continue to work to move in a positive direction. I kept telling him that. And, eventually he went out to Hollywood to see if he could be discovered. Started working in bars, started running the bars, actually. He was a bartender. He was trying to develop speed in pouring drinks and remembering things. And he did all that. He was able to remember orders and whatnot, fairly intricate orders. He's really good, and he did that for a while. Then he decided, hey, look, I'm feeding people alcohol. Why don't I feed people food? So he went to chef school and became a chef. Loved the work, hated the people that he worked with, mainly because there's a lot of drugs in kitchens, as he says anyway. So he decided to get out of that. And he realized, hey, what direction am I going to go now? So he decided to finish his bachelor's degree, and he got finished his bachelor's degree, and he started teaching. He was a math major. And then he decided, I'd like to work for the government, so I think I need to get a master's degree in mathematics in order to be able to get a good job with the feds. So he did that. And of course he's accumulating debt the whole time, but he's continuing to do things that are moving him in a positive direction. So he finally finished his master's degree in mathematics. Found out that it wasn't enough. He needed a master's degree in computers as well. So he got a master's degree in data processing, and now he just got a job with the federal government, and so he'll be working with one of the agencies. I won't tell you which one, but he'll be working with one of the agencies doing cybersecurity, and and cryptography, and that's what he wanted to do to begin with. He continued to work to move in a positive direction, despite the fact that he was teaching for a while, didn't really like it. but of course it paid the bills. So he continued to accumulate education, and now he finally has his dream job. He says so. We'll see. He's starting in November, so we'll see what happens. This process also teaches clients the process of creating plans to achieve goals, and of course that's what my son did. His basic problem is that he's a math major. I know that sounds kind of weird, but math majors are always figuring things out to the 100th point. So anytime he plans something, it takes him a couple of days of planning and figuring to make sure he's not losing money in whatever he does. Not a whole lot of spontaneity there, but that's what being a math major is all about. The practitioner needs to evaluate whether the client is satisfied with their progress. The practitioner can reuse the monitoring system that was established in goal setting. You may hear me slapping things from time to time. I'm killing flies is what I'm doing. It's fly season here. It's fall. It's thinking of getting cold, so the flies are going berserk, trying to pop out some more eggs before they expire. So I've got lots of flies. I don't know where they're coming from. All the doors are closed. The practitioner needs to evaluate whether the client is satisfied with their progress. The practitioner can reuse the monitoring system that was established in goal setting, and that should work. Little progress may relate to whether the client felt goals were attainable or highly valued. The progress made may seem slower to the practitioner. The practitioner should always emphasize positive steps, and that's what I've been saying. And this is a picture of what I've always told my children. Keep moving in a positive direction. Even if you move backwards, if you take two steps backwards, always make sure you're taking one step forward. What steps have you taken since our last meeting to move toward your goals? In the last week, what did each of you do to help make your time together go well? We had mega fun week, of course, and it made our hair stick out. Between now and the next time that we meet, I want you to find one aspect of your behavior that went well and that you'd like to continue doing. And of course, this is a joke. After talking to your boss, how did you feel about yourself? Will you tell us about what you did that made things go better this week in your family? We have been working together for a few weeks now. Let's focus on what we have accomplished. Skills to enhance achievement of steps. Teaching can convey information. New information might help clients achieve their goals. Teaching can take place in sessions, workshops, etc. Teaching might involve diversity issues, resolving conflicts, making decisions, and or leading a group. Role-playing or rehearsing can be useful. Practicing a new behavior in a safe environment increases confidence of the client. During the action phase, it is appropriate that sometimes necessary for the practitioner to be directive. Being directive involves asking clients to do something new or to go in a different direction. Imagine you are talking to your wife now. Tell her what you want her to know. I notice you are directing your comments to me in the group. Would you look at several others while you are sharing? Between now and our next session, will you keep track of one thing you do for yourself each day? Reframing is inviting a different perspective. The practitioner invites clients to see experiences, feelings, thoughts, behaviors, or situations in a new way. Reframing can increase success in achieving action steps. Reframing can use questions to invite clients to see things differently. Reframing encourages clients to think about something they have avoided. Maybe his disruptive behavior in class is an indication that he is bored. Identifying discrepancies is similar to confrontation. By identifying discrepancies, it usually involves a behavior that is moving the client away, not toward a desired behavior. You're talking about being scared, but you're actually smiling. Previously, it seemed like we had reached an agreement, and now I hear you are not ready to do that. You said you wanted your son to move home, but you are also shaking your head no. Skills to enhance achievement steps. Discrepancies can include what a client is saying or doing and what the practitioner is noticing. What the client is saying, this is known as passive aggressive behavior, where they tell you they're going to do one thing, but they drag their feet, or they don't do what they said they were going to do. That's known as passive aggressive behavior. And we see that all the time. People who don't really want to stop smoking will do odd things like go out on cigarette breaks, and of course they're around all that tobacco smoke, and it makes them want to smoke. So relapse is very possible. What the client is saying and what the practitioner heard the client say another time. I see. I keep. I'm a political junkie, and I keep watching CNN, and they're talking about. CNN is fairly liberal, so they're talking about Republican politicians, and sometimes they'll say one thing at one time, and then they will totally contradict themselves at another time. Well, clients will do this all the time. At one point, they'll say, I love spinach, and then they'll tell you, oh, my wife made spinach the other day, and oh, I hate spinach. But you just said, 3 weeks ago, you said you love spinach. What's going on? And a lot of times this is what will happen. I mean, that's a really poor example. Um, and you'll recognize it when it happens, because these are little nuggets of gold that you remember about your client, and then all of a sudden they say something that is completely opposite, the antithesis of what they said before. What the client is saying in the meeting and the client's actions outside the meeting. A lot of times these are discrepancies as well, can be discrepancies. So in the meeting, they're saying, I'm never going to drink again. And the first thing that happens is they head right for the bar. What client says is important. Where's the goal and his or her behavior? Stop. Feedback can be in the form of stating what the practitioner sees and hears, sharing an awareness of what clients are showing and non-verbally or expressing in their tone of voice. Groups and family members can be invited to give feedback as well. I noticed that you were smiling. You look like you were about to cry. I notice your hands are clenched, which makes you which shows me that you're angry. I think the team is beginning to agree as I see heads nodding. Self-disclosure can be used to share personal information, observations, and opinions to give the client a different perspective or offer an illustration or example. And I just gave you one of my son, how my son has always working toward his positive goals. That's a self-disclosure. You don't know who my son is. You know my name, but that's about it. You have no idea where my son is, but you do know that he's going to start working for the federal government. This is a form of self-disclosure. Will it help the client? Will it not help the client? I tell a lot of stories. The reason I do that is to show you that these are all real, that all of these things are real. I put them in discussions and whatnot. I'm always trying to think of a way to illustrate something, and usually that is something that comes out of my life. Those are forms of self-disclosure. The information from the self-disclosure may be about the practitioner's personal experience or his or her experience of the client. Self-disclosure should only be used when the relationship is strong. And this is something that you need to be able to determine. Is the relationship strong enough for you to self-disclose? Self-disclosure should be employed sparingly. Goals of self-disclosure enhance or preserve the relationship. The practitioner's needs do not take precedence. Used for the benefit of the client, not for themselves. Ethical concerns of self-disclosure. It can be a way of subtly including personal values into the interactions, and that's something that you have to be careful of. When responding to direct and personal questions, a practitioner should consider what led the client to ask the questions. Is it an effort to change the relationship to something less professional? A question may be a way of asking for advice. Self-disclosure can enhance the genuineness of the relationship. Immediacy is where the practitioner comments on what seems to be happening currently in the relationship. Immediacy can help the client understand other relationships. Immediacy involves a practitioner sharing his or her own thoughts and feelings. Immediacy is about what is happening in the moment with the client. And that is the end of that chapter. Okay, so as I told you before, we have 5 histories right now out of 16 students in the class. So I need you to get to create your character and to get those in. Just email them to me. I have to put them up on the website anyway. So just email them to me, and I will put them up. And I hope I remember to give you your 50 points. I'm laughing, but sometimes I get involved in one thing and then something else will happen. Somebody will call me on the phone and I'll forget to do things. But yeah, get those in. You can't pass the class without doing your counseling sessions. This may be the wave of what is to come in the future. It would be nice if we could go back pre-COVID, but I don't think that's a possibility. Even pre-COVID, there was a movement toward online counseling, online medicine. This is something that's been headed in this direction for a long time. Now social media is in trouble. Facebook is having problems. There was a whistleblower that told the world that Facebook has an algorithm that tells them how much damage they're doing to people, and it is especially damaging to young women, to young girls. It seems to have something to do with image problems, which is very logical. I can understand why that may happen. As I've told you before, we don't know what the future is going to look like. We don't know how much damage is being done by these things, but we need to be able to adapt to what is happening, to what cards are being dealt to us. 15 years ago, if we talked about Facebook or we talked about social media, everybody would have laughed. We had a lot more television stations than we had before, but other than that, it didn't have anything to do with this compulsion, this obsession that a lot of people have being online. And I was just thinking about my wife. She spends hours a day on Facebook, and a lot of times she's not really communicating with anybody. She's just looking at what people have sent her, and from that information, sometimes her personality seems to change a little bit. And this is something that may happen, that we may see more and more of. Our children's personalities may not be forming from the family that they live in and from the culture that they adhere to. It may come from Korea, or it may come from Japan or something else. They may become obsessed with Game of Thrones or Fortnite. My grandson seems to be obsessed with Fortnite, to the exclusion of the athletic teams that he plays on. From time to time, he will say that he doesn't want to go to practice because he would rather play on the computer. Of course, that's something that my daughter has to deal with. Um, so there you go. We do need you to get your characters in so that I can put them up. You can't really finish the class without your 100 points that you will get from your 10 counseling sessions. You need to develop a relationship with some of your cohort, some of your fellow students, your cohorts in the class, so that you'll have somebody to counsel. I would suggest counseling somebody that you don't know. Um, it it is maybe a little bit easier if you're dealing with somebody that you don't is not your friend, because if you're counseling a friend, then you're always thinking of them as as the person that you know, not as the character that they're trying to play. Anyway, okay, get those things in, and this is the lecture for the ninth week. It's actually the eighth week that I'm doing this, so I have to think a week ahead. Sometimes that's very difficult. Anyway, okay, so get those things in, and I'll talk to you next week. Next week will be the last lecture. And after that, it will be your responsibility to get your paper in and to get your counseling sessions in, to do all your quizzes and put in your discussions and whatnot. Everything that I do, I don't do anything for busy work. This isn't busy work. This is trying to show you what I want you to investigate yourself, to find out if within yourself you have the ability to do this. None of this is busy work. It's all necessary. And of course, like I said before, I've been doing this since 1975. So I have a little bit of experience, and I know what you need to put together in order to be able to do this. And that's what I'm trying to get you to do. And like I said before, you may think that, oh, I'm only going to counsel Navajos, and I sure know those guys inside and outside. And the answer will actually be, nope, you don't. You think you do, but you don't. You may be counseling somebody who is Dene, but they have this obsession with Korean boy bands or something, or dressing, like a anime character or something. Anyway, okay, I'll talk to you guys next week.